You may have noticed the KU shirt. Uh, yes, I am a KU fan. I'm not a big basketball fan, I got to admit, but I am pleased to say that, as we generally expect, after all, James Naismith invented basketball while teaching PE at the University of Kansas. So we kind of expect the Jayhawk basketball team to make the March Madness bracket, and they did. Something that we don't generally expect that happened this year is they got put out in the second round. We usually figure they're going to go a bit further than that. And Bill Self has certainly taken them further than that most of his years there. But some of that, sadly, I think has to do with all this business with NIL and transfer portals and, kids barely finishing their freshman year and then running to the NBA. It's college sports right now are kind of a mess, in my opinion. Now, as you know, I watch YouTube videos, watch quite a few of them. And I was seeing somewhere some Europeans were, and some Koreans too, were just absolutely amazed by our marching bands. Now, the marching bands they were looking at came from two groups. One, the really, really big schools. In fact, they were Ohio State and Texas A&M. And I admit, both of those have amazing marching bands. The others were from what we call historically black colleges and universities. Norfolk State, Grambling, Southern, Alcorn, Florida A&M, etc. Tuskegee, whatever, I don't know. I can't keep track of all of them, but a bunch of them anyway. And, and they have, oh boy, do they put on a show. Those are more than worth seeing. But I got to thinking about being a graduate of the University of Montana, which I'm quite proud of. I tell people my oldest sister and I are both accountants by training. And I tell people, she graduated from Brigham Young University, magna cum laude. I graduated from the University of Montana, thank the Lottie, But I'm quite proud of being a UM graduate. And when I was a student, I paid an athletic fee, and that athletic fee entitled me to go to football, basketball, various athletic events, free of charge, as long as I sat in the student section. If I wanted to sit somewhere else, I had to buy the ticket. I could also bring a guest. Well, I was married, I brought my wife. Now, I couldn't bring her for free. I had to pay a whopping $5 for her seat. She still had to sit in the student section. No, I didn't go to a lot of basketball. Like I already mentioned, I'm not a big basketball fan. But we rarely missed a home football game. But something that, now when I was in high school, I was in band, and I was in the marching band. Now, I wasn't in the marching band during football season because I played football. I was in the marching band that went to parades during football season, though. I remember marching at the State Fair parade, and of course, every year in our little Christmas parade there in my hometown, and whatnot. And, it was an experience, and a good one. Taught me a lot. And I carried both the marching and the ability to play the drums into the Navy. Got me out of having to be in a regular rifle company in boot camp. I got to be in the Drum and Bugle Corps because I already knew how to march and I could play a drum. But I know from having been in the marching band and the pep band in high school that, and in the drum and bugle corps in boot camp, I know that these people work their tails off for the show. And it used to sadden me some when we go to a football game at, and pardon me, it's the proper name of the place is Washington Grizzly Stadium. That's the University of Montana's football stadium. And people say, well, why is it Washington? It's in Montana. Well, it's named for billionaire businessman Dennis Washington, who lives in Missoula, and whose construction company built the stadium at his expense. So, and it's been expanded several times since he first built it. It, I think, now has a seating capacity closer to 30,000, which I think it started about half that. Which is, it's not huge if you're comparing to Tennessee or Alabama or something, but it is the biggest or one of the biggest in FCS. But it used to kind of sadden me. We'd go to the games and halftime would get there. Okay, I understood that some people had been holding their bladders or whatever, waiting for halftime, and now they had to run. Okay, that's going to take a percentage of the people. And the lines at the restrooms told me that that percentage was probably around 10%. I knew that there were people that were probably didn't bring something to eat because this was before 9/11. You could bring a bag and, because I was an undergrad in the 90s, so mid-90s, so, you could bring a bag lunch with you. And, we used to get a sandwich made by a local sandwich shop called the Grizz Pile Driver. And boy, it was big and beautiful and tasted wonderful, and we'd bring that. And actually bring two of them because I could eat one by myself. I was full when I was done, but I could do it. But, they didn't bring anything to eat, and they were hitting the snack bar for some lunch or something. Okay, fine. We were mid-afternoon. They should have had lunch probably earlier, but just the same. Okay, so you look at the lines of the concession stands, and that was maybe another 15% of the people. So there's a fourth. But you were missing more than half. The rest had gone out to tailgate. I can still remember Peter Christian, who was, and I think still is, a local radio personality in that area, was also the announcer for Grizz games. And he would have to call them back in from tailgating when the second half kicked off. Because these people were paying more attention to beer and Q than they were to the game that they had paid good money to be at. But be that as it may, what saddened me about that was, now back then we still called the marching band the Big Sky Winds. I think now they just call them the UM Marching Band or the Grizzly Marching Band, something of that nature. But those kids had worked hard since the last home game, whether that was a week ago or 2 weeks ago or whatever, putting that show together for that halftime. They didn't repeat it week after week. They did a different show every home game. And they had worked their fannies off putting that together. And then here, 60-70% of the crowd was paying them no attention. And 25% of that, okay. I'll excuse them. They, needed something to eat, needed to go to the restroom, whatever. But all those people going out there to tailgate, no. Those kids in that marching band worked every bit as hard as those athletes did. Again, remember, in high school I was both, I know. And those kids had worked in that marching band had worked every bit as hard as the athletes had to put on the show. And there you are ignoring them like they were worthless. And the dance team was out there with them, and you're ignoring them. And those girls had worked really hard. And that really, I don't know, it kind of bothers me when people, without really good reason anyway, ignore those halftime shows. I don't care if it's at your local high school game or at an NAIA school like, here in Kansas, we have a bunch of those. Friends in Bethel and Bethany and Kansas Newman and Kansas Wesleyan and Benedictine and I can't remember all of them. Well, Baker, I can remember that because that's where my grandpa went to college. Or Division II schools. We have a few of those here too, Fort Hays State, Pittsburgh State, and Emporia State. Or whether it's an FCS school. We don't have any FCS schools in Kansas. I sometimes wonder why not. But I went to an FCS school. And of course, then the BCS schools, or FBS schools, however you want to put that. We have KU and K-State, both Big 12 schools. But whatever you're at, you've got kids there, they're not being paid. This isn't in the NIL and transfer portal garbage that's infested the athletic departments. These kids are, and they're not all music majors either. I bring this up. When I was an undergrad, there was an undergrad who was a sousaphone player in the marching band who was a journalism major. I know this because after graduation, he went to work writing for Rolling Stone magazine. Nate Schweber was his name, and he was a ball to watch. He was out there having all kinds of fun. And that's the thing. These kids work hard to put those shows on. But they're out there having fun doing it too. But part of their fun is that you're watching, that you're enjoying their effort, that you appreciate all the work they've done, all the time they've put in, all that rehearsal with their instruments, all that rehearsal with the marching, all of that. Now, if you look in the comments, and I'm biased, yes, you're going to find two links though. One of those is to the University of Montana Marching Band, one of their halftime shows. I believe it's a little bit abbreviated because an NCAA halftime is usually 20 minutes. And this video is just over, well, it's almost 11 minutes. So I think it is slightly abbreviated. The other videos are not because of the band, but because of somebody else who works their tail off, and that's the mascots. And UM has a lot to be proud of when it comes to Monty the Bear, which has been their mascot for a long time. Because Monty has been Capital One College Mascot of the Year twice. The first time, inside that bear suit, was a guy named Barry Anderson. You may remember him because he went on to something like 12 years or so, that he was Benny the Bull, the Chicago Bulls mascot. And in fact, in the video of the Monty highlights, you will see Benny a time or two. That's because after graduation, after becoming Benny the Bull, Barry used to come back and visit because of the atmosphere of Washington Grizzly Stadium. And because the new Monty was probably a friend of his anyway. But Barry was an amazing athlete, an amazing dancer, and it shows. If you ever see videos of him in the bear suit, or for that matter, in the bull costume, because he did a lot of the same things for the Chicago Bulls, including he didn't do this in the Adams Center because they never allowed it, but wherever the Bulls play their home games, I forget where that is, he was known to rappel down from the rafters. Yeah. Half-court shots with his back to the goal. Slam dunks off of a trampoline, with a flip included sometimes. Barry was amazing as a mascot, and Monty has been an amazing mascot. Before Barry won the costume, definitely during the time Barry had the costume, and since Barry's had the costume. And so we're pretty proud of him, those of us who are lifelong Grizzlies. And so I thought I would include a little quick video of some of his highlights. But I also strongly recommend that you take a look at not only Monty, but look up some of the other college mascots. Some of them are really, really good. KU, Big J and Baby J. Worth a look, for sure.